Where do we go from here? No, I'm serious. All the bases have been covered. But I know that there's gonna be another one. The problem is that I don't know what it could look like. How do we even make a new Mario Kart?
Then why am I here?
Well, you're gonna help me figure out how to do it. I mean, really breaking it down, there are like, what, 5 things that make up a Mario Kart? The characters, tracks, gimmick, as well as the items and the battle mode. And surely there has to be patterns that we could pull from previous games, right? Like how the cup selection is divided into new and returning tracks, every game introducing a new mechanic that makes a fundamentally different driving experience, and I don't know, adding the most fuck-ass character picks?
Okay, so reasonably, if you wanted to start making your own Mario Kart, you probably should start with the gimmick, right?
Wait, where'd you
That
get
way
the
we have a
board?
foundation of how the tracks are developed, how the characters work, and even to an extent the battle mode.
Actually, that's not a bad idea. Okay, hear me out. So in the recent Mario Kart iterations, the gimmicks have been focused on the karts. You know, the new driving methods, bikes, etc. So let me ask you this. Who do you typically play? Like, who's your main?
Oh, Luigi.
Okay, perfect example. Why?
I don't know, I like the character, he plays well.
Exactly. Most people just play their favorite characters or what defines the meta at that given time. Whatever the reason may be, functionally, the majority of the gameplay is dictated by the kart loadout. Like, Luigi is a great pick. However, Iggy and Kamek have very similar stats to him. So what if there was a better way to differentiate them?
Like what? Unique character items? I already did that in Double Dash, that's not really unique.
Not quite, but you're pretty close.
Wow, that was fast.
I'd say that this is the equivalent of a super move that's dependent on a meter that needs to be filled, whose fill speed is determined by 1, racer placement, it fills faster the further back you are in the pack, and 2, coins. Get a coin, fill the meter. It gives a little bit more functionality for coins, and it can even give incentive to want coins from the item box. For the sake of brevity, let's refer to these as turbocharges. I think it's pretty snappy and can even work as a title.
Okay, that's cool and all, but what do they do?
Let me cook! Sorry, but these turbocharges are character specific. However, it's not a get out of jail free card either. The goal is to make something that can work in tandem with the existing systems, adding more depth to racing.
So in order to really talk about what they do, you have to define the characters first. Gotcha. Fine. Who's here?
I'm getting real tired of your impatience, but here's what I have in mind. Full disclosure, I think that 8 Deluxe has too many characters. Some, if not most, are kinda redundant, so let's just cut that by a third, going from 48 to an even 30. Speaking of, here's the full roster. The first big swing I'd like to implement is that we would be going back to basics. No crossovers at all. Not characters, not tracks, nada. Because if we continued down that route, that slippery slope would snowball away from Mario Kart and towards a Super Smash Kart. That's a completely different game.
But what about...
If you really want Link or Isabelle or Inkling or whoever you'd like, just make a DLC pack for it. Why not? After that, it's just trimming the fat. No more Koopalings, no variants, and we don't need half of the babies. In terms of newcomers, I think that Prince Florian, Nabbit, Professor Egad, and Poochie all fit niches that either don't yet exist or feel unrepresented, or are just awesome and I like them.
So you have your roster. Cool, cool. Congrats. Now, how does the turbocharge thing work?
I said that turbochargers were akin to like super moves for a specific character, right? At that point, it's less of what they do in general and more of what does that character get. Like Prince Florian gets access to the Vine Grapple, where a vine shoots to the nearest wall or racer, pulling them forward either for a quick boost or a wicked mini turbo. Some are more odd, like how Toadette uses the Super Crown to turn into Peachette. That just turns her into an entirely different racer with new stats and a new weight class, which has its benefits and downsides. Also, I think it'd be nice for Peachette to be able to tank a hit without any sort of penalty and it just transforms her back into Toadette, but that's really up for interpretation. But considering how it's also on a timer, it's probably not too busted. Nabbit just litters the field with items coming from his big sack, which mostly consists of shells, bananas, bombs, and fake item boxes. And if we want to keep it a little bit simpler, Mario just kinda charges forward in a fiery blaze, with the tire marks burning for a bit as well, spinning anyone out who comes in contact with it.
But what about Luigi?
Funnily enough, Luigi was the first one that really came to mind. His vacuum field sucks in other racers and items towards Luigi like a vortex. It's not damaging, however, if comboed with something like triple shells or bananas, bombs, or even a blue shell for those seeking to avoid the crossfire, you could just take them all down in one fell swoop.
Are these all really just references?
That's the goal! DK gets his bongos, Poochie would get his pups to retrieve items, and Petey Piranha just pukes goop everywhere.
But that's only really a sample, right? You made stuff for everyone.
That's the entire design document that I used for this video. There's everything from all the characters and their turbocharges to the new and returning tracks and even some stuff like the items and whatnot. Read it after we're done here. I promise it won't disappoint. Alright, what's next? Items? Cool, let's get into it. Honestly, there's not a lot that I can really think of for new items, mainly because I'd say that most of the bases have been covered already, which does not make things easy for me. As for returning items, you have the staples of the shells and the bananas and the mushrooms and even the fake item box, which confusingly enough skipped 8. However, most of the items introduced in 8 are gone, but I promise that at least one of them is for a good reason. That said, here are a few of the new item ideas I came up with. There's the mini mushroom, where you shrink down like when you're struck by lightning, but not only do you retain your base speed, it increases as well, making it harder for anyone to hit you. And then there's the ice flower, which doesn't act in the same way as its fiery variant. You charge up a blast that targets the ground, in which it turns the surrounding area slick. You could probably imagine how that goes. And that's it, I only came up with 2 of them.
Huh, I don't really know how to feel about that, to be honest. What's the point of getting rid of some of these items anyways? But fine, I'll indulge you. Oh gee whiz, mister! Why are you getting rid of the piranha plant? God damn it.
What I have in mind for this is less of new modes and more of refining what's already there. And you know, adding new maps, we always like new maps. All of the games from 8 Deluxe will be returning, and especially since there's no standard Piranha Plant item anymore, it makes this one feel a lot more special. I genuinely think that we don't need any more modes, as this is a great variety that plays very differently from one another and has their own win conditions. Speaking on that, some quality of life improvements can be made to help better battle mode, like having you be able to control how many CPUs there are in a match, if any at all. There should also be a time limit toggle for if you want a game to end within a certain time frame, or if you want to make a specific set of win conditions separate from running out the clock, or just have them both be independent sliders. There's a lot of little things that can be changed about this. When it comes to maps, I think that 7 is a good number to have, with 4 returning and 3 new. For the returning maps, let's bring in some of the best, with Switch Dragon Palace, DS Tart Top, Wii Funky Stadium, and N64 Block Fort. With those being some of the better received maps, I think that everyone will have a good time here. For the new ones, let's shake things up. Whirl Beach is a new take on the coastal map archetype, with the center being engulfed by a giant whirlpool that will ebb and flow based on the tides that will come in and out at specific intervals. Then there's Tangled Treehouse, which in my eyes is really reminiscent of Four Tree City from Pokemon, but honestly, that's just a plus. It's just a bunch of tree houses connected by rope bridges. One wrong move and you're sent careening down out of bounds. Then finally, we have the Coin Vault. Honestly, most of the battle modes really fit into a bank environment, which I'm surprised they haven't done yet. You have to be sneaky around these giant corridors and be careful not to get caught.
You really put a lot of thought into these maps, didn't you?
No, these are actually just the first things that came to mind.
Oh, word? Alright, hotshot. What about the regular racetracks then? Don't you dare bring out another pinboard. I swear to God, if you bring out another pinboard, I'm gonna flip a lid.
Whoa, okay. Chill. But to be honest, I have no idea how to tackle these. But I do have a few things in mind.
Ah!
There are definitely some things I'd like to keep from the prior entry, namely the solidification of a 12-cup system. In every other base game, there's been at most 8, with 4 Nitro and 4 Retro Cups. Let's just expand that to 6 each, as that makes for a much more complete roster. Granted, some things will have to be moved around to make sure that some things stay where you would expect, but that's such a small thing. Another thing I'd like to try is to have a good chunk of tracks tell a story throughout the race, or even just have branching or alternating paths a la the tour tracks. Honestly, those were plagued with baffling track design and terrible signposting, so if that could be rectified, I genuinely think that these types of tracks could be some of the best in the entire series.
But that begs the question of, what do you even have in mind? What do you even got?
Basically nothing. I got a few things, but they mainly fit the archetypes of like the standard circuits, the snow, beach, and sand level, the city, you know, standard fare.
What about character-specific levels, like the Donkey Kong level, or the Bowser Castle, or maybe even one based off the new characters?
Okay, I can work with that. How about a sort of Thunderdome-esque thing set in Donkey Kong Country, or even have it be similar to the one in the Mario movie? They can kind of work for both the jungle and stadium themed tracks, right? And I don't know about you, but I think it'd be kind of fun to have a Nabbit-themed casino, where you basically bob and weave through the show floor, tricking off a tray of age-appropriate drinks, drive on top of the actual Waluigi pinball cabinet for a fun callback. The works. Or, I know it's not a character per se, but what if we explored the birthplace of Bullet Bills? For some reason, I imagined it being a forge, kind of like an antithesis to Toad's factory. And I mean, there could be a sequel of sorts to Shy Guy Falls, where they find a large gemstone deposit behind one of the falls. So you race inside the mines, and as it gets excavated, new paths get opened up and old paths get blocked, all culminating in a loop around the mother of all gemstones that put the Master Emerald to shame. Just don't tell Knuckles. And for the Bowser Castle level, let's make it less of a traditional castle and more of an event where Bowser's minions are getting ready to mobilize under the command of their leader. So it's more of like an armory or a big horde type of thing. Hell, have the minions do their chanting in tandem to the music, like it's their war cry.
Okay, I'm not too sure if they'd allow a casino level in Mario Kart, but that's a decent enough start. What about something that hasn't been explored yet? Like, have they done something like, I don't know, a roller coaster?
You know, I've actually done a bit of research on that. Surprisingly enough, no, they haven't. So why don't we make it a counterpart to Water Park and make it somewhat Waluigi inspired to oppose the Wario theming of the prior course. And we could also add like a cyberspace type of level, have it be an exaggeration of a virus invasion on a computer, wire roads, floating binary code, and when the virus is trying to take control, the firewall is activated. And one that I've also wanted to see is akin to like a film lot. Could that even work? Sure, why not? Let's just call it Rolling Camera Works.
Okay, so I understand that you want to make some of these levels tell more of a story, and I can see that with the Shy Guy Mine, Cyberworld Sprint, and even Jackpot Casino. But what about some of the crazy ones, like some 3-part courses, like Big Blue or Mount Wario?
Yeah, that's fair enough. The first one that really comes to mind is like a big Mario Wonder reference. Start with the Pipe Rock Plateau and have that split into multiple paths, converge at the castle where a Wonder Flower transports you to Fluff Buff Peaks, where you climb up the tree, dodging stuff like Condarts and Pokepedes before finding another Wonder Flower that transports you to the Petal Isles. Truck off the Smack Rolls, hop between the islands, and bam, end the race collecting a Royal Seed. There's also stuff like Beanstalk Bound, where it's not really 3 parts in the traditional sense, but you basically climb the linear beanstalk for the first part of the first lap before getting onto a cloud lair that is terrorized by Lakitus, who rain down spinies, cutting holes into the floor. After you glide off of that, as the cloud lair is being held up by beanstalk branches, you then repeat the first parts, but you have to go up a layer higher because the road before it is destroyed, or at least is super difficult to drive on. Rinse and repeat a third time to end with a beautiful shot of the top of the beanstalk from the finish line, now with it bearing fruit.
So it seems like you know what you want to do, but clearly we haven't talked about the most important track on the list.
Rainbow Road? Yeah, I know. I have a great idea for it.
Oh, well, of course you do. Why am I even here?
Hey man, honestly, you've been a great help. Without you, I wouldn't have been able to come up with or organize any of these ideas. Trust me, you've helped me more than you could ever realize. Anyways, Rainbow Road. I want this to be a true space odyssey. The Rainbow Road winds around outer space, following a rocket ship with the Captain Toad Brigade and Face Ship in tow, culminating in the road being sucked into a black hole, with the color fading and the road corkscrewing as the Face Ship tries to intercept you, having you drive on it before getting swept into the black hole yourself. Your cart emerges, gliding past the shards of the Rainbow Road, glittering with only a hint of color before landing on the spaceship that you got to know in the beginning, guiding you towards the finish, with the Captain Toad Brigade acting as small platforms to guide you towards the final destination, the space station, potentially the one from Mario Kart 8, as I think that would be a really fun callback.
And you expect me to believe you came up with that just now, on the spot?
Kinda? Yeah.
Fine. Now you expect me to believe you already came up with all of the retro tracks too?
Well, let's think about it like this. Here's all the ideas we've come up with for the tracks, including some that I didn't outright talk about, but kind of make sense with their level theming. So reasonably, we just need to find out what tracks from previous entries fill the holes that we have, bring in some fan favorites, and make sure that we have a relatively equal representation from each system, and bada boom, that should do it.
But that could take forever, and most of this stuff's super subjective anyways. And I don't know about you, but I don't really want to see many of those stupid SNES courses.
Done.
What?
It wasn't that crazy. If we skewed it a bit more modern, we have so many awesome and unique tracks that they just kind of write themselves. I was also able to bring back some tracks that haven't been remade yet, like Lakeside Park and Wario's Shipyard, and we just got a pretty solid list. And since the turbocharge mechanic isn't indicative of track design, there were very little changes that we needed to make for these, like some anti-grav here, glider segments there, and so on.
But I see Sunset Wilds in here. The last time it got remade, it was terrible. Do you really want people to deal with that again?
I mean, if we add the sunset transition, it should be fine, right? The goal here is to make their definitive versions, so whatever changes need to be made can be made. Wow, we did a lot today. That was a crazy brainstorming session. I could really start to see the whole idea come together. It's an insane amount of work. But hey, I really appreciate you being here to help bounce ideas off of. I genuinely couldn't have done it without you. All right, I guess I'll leave it to it. Goodbye.